Try to look excited when the video starts. Bam! Probably just look like a crazy person. It's day 45 of quarantine or something. I ain't quite sure what day it is no more. Need a haircut real bad. Probably going to shave my head soon. Maybe next time we talk I'll have a mullet. But before I further descend into madness, let's talk about abstract expressionism. So, what is abstract expressionism? Where does it come from? Why does it happen? And what are some examples of it? These are all things that are essential to understanding art post-World War II. So let's start with what it is. Abstract expressionism is an art movement, 1950s after World War II, that seeks to reject classical forms of art and classical way of thinking. Much in the way that after World War I, the modernists reject classical influences because they view classical and nationalist ideas together starting World War I. These abstract expressionists are going to feel much the same way, and they have a really good reason to set the stage a little bit. World War II is definitely caused by extreme nationalism in the form of fascism, and the chosen aesthetic or art style of this extreme nationalism is neoclassical art and architecture. What does it look like? I'll have some more specific examples later, but let's just say for now that it's all in the name. It is abstraction and it is expressionist. It is going to reject classical forms, technique, scenes, settings, figures in favor of a more geometric, abstract composition. And then furthermore, it will be expressionist, much in the way that Fauvism and German expressionism sought to use color to do more than simply paint a scene, to use color to show emotion, tone, reaction. These abstract expressionists are going to go even further into what color can do and what color is capable of, in some cases completely on its own. And what is the context here? It's after World War II. The people of America and Europe are rightfully horrified by World War II. World War II in general and the weapons of it, but also especially the mass genocide known as the Holocaust that is perpetrated by these extreme nationalist forces. And these abstract expressionists are seeking a new way forward away from the horrors that have occurred in the 1930s and 1940s. A new, maybe even more utopian ideal about what the world can be. The philosophies behind abstract expressionism will be the philosophies of the mid-1900s. You could call it nihilism. You could call it non-Christian existentialism. Certainly there is a Christian component to existentialism with Soren Kierkegaard and things like that. Ooh, I love me some Soren Kierkegaard. But these new existential nihilist thinkers, you got your Jean-Paul Sartre, you've got your Albert Camus, you've got a bunch of other thinkers as well. You've got your Simone de Beauvoir. They are really going to cling to this idea that is really exemplified by Friedrich Nietzsche when he famously says God is dead. To explain that idea a little bit, we can simply say that it doesn't mean like man in the sky, modeled off of Zeus' big beard, lightning bolt God, as much as this idea that life has a set purpose, that there is a set reason you are here, that everything happens for a reason. This absolutism is dead, and now it is all relative. And while some people, especially people that don't really understand what this means, think that this is a thing to celebrate, Nietzsche and a lot of these existentialists will see this as a call to action, because now that there is no set thing you are supposed to do with your life, you must now, push forward on your own. The next part of that quote, God is dead and we have killed him. He goes on to say, what will we do, us murderers? What will we do now that we don't have a set reason for being alive? And this will be really reflected, to bring it back to the art, in abstract expressionism. This will simultaneously be, in a lot of cases, art about everything, and art that is not inherently about anything, much in the way that life is now open to any opportunity, but also does not inherently have a meaning. The other thing that you really need to focus on when you look at abstract expressions, especially for the example that I'm going to choose, Mark Rothko, is there's a heavy vein of psychoanalytical thought in abstract expressionism. And let's talk about what I mean by that. I don't mean necessarily Sigmund Freud psychoanalytical thinking, as much as I mean like Carl Jung's idea about archetypes. This idea that all of humanity, even without a set purpose, has certain things that make us inherently human, certain emotions, forms, thoughts, feelings that are cohesive across cultures, and that these are the things that we must key into in the absence of some sort of divine figure to help us find purpose in this absurd existence without any inherent meaning. And I can just keep talking about these things, but I don't want to confuse you. So to wrap up, existential thinking, nihilistic thinking, and psychoanalytical thinking about subconscious feelings and behaviors, and this idea that life can be anything because it inherently doesn't have a meaning, it is inherently meaningless, are going to be the driving forces behind abstract expressionism. Abstract expressionism is going to seek to hold a mirror up to mankind and offer a moment of introspection and self-reflection with our subconscious thinking to find what our true purpose could be moving forward after World War II. Some examples of these artists, William de Kooning, certainly his work is a great example of this idea of a self-reflection of the human condition, with his series of paintings of women, most famously probably Woman 1. You've got Jackson Pollock, who really goes into abstraction with his use of motion in painting and no discernible narrative. Agnes Martin, who doesn't love a good Agnes Martin, who's just going to use geometry, and purposely imperfect geometry, to try to get the viewer to interact with the painting on a subconscious level. But the artist that I think best exemplifies abstract expressionism, and also, quite frankly, my favorite artist of the group, so he's the easiest for me to talk about, is Mark Rothko. His artwork is both perfectly expressionist and perfectly abstract. What do I mean when I say it's perfectly abstract? His paintings have no discernible forms. They have no discernible narrative. They don't even have titles. A lot of times you'll see paintings of Mark Rothko's that have a title. That is a title given to it by a collector or a museum so that they can categorize it. And in the case of a painting like White Center, there's multiple Mark Rothko paintings named White Center. The White Center that I saw in Los Angeles is not necessarily the White Center that you will see if you Google Mark Rothko White Center. His paintings are also completely expressionist. They're very psychoanalytical. It's just color. It's not color to tell a story. It's not color to have some deeper symbolic meaning. It is just fields of color. Mark Rothko seeks for you to get lost in these fields of color. If you've ever seen a Mark Rothko, most of his paintings are exceptionally large. He has a set way that he wanted you to view his paintings. He wanted you to see them up close in a room of just paintings of his or paintings like his, so that all you can interact with when you look at the painting is the color. He sought for you to have some sort of psychoanalytical catharsis or emotional release, because You project onto the painting, another psychoanalytical term, your feelings, and the painting bounces them back, almost some sort of subconscious mirror. The painting is simultaneously about everything and nothing, because it only gives to you what you have brought to it. And anyone that has seen a Mark Rothko painting certainly understands this feeling. A lot of people report feeling very overwhelmed, very emotional upon viewing a Mark Rothko painting. There's a great quote that springs to mind about Mark Rothko's paintings and the effect they can have from Dominique de Meinel, who is a famous art collector, gallery owner. You can go to the Meinel Gallery, which is right next to the Rothko Chapel in Texas. And she said that Mark Rothko's paintings bring us closer to the tragic mystery of our perishable condition. In other words, what is it about our lives that is important with the limited time we have? She says that his paintings show us the silence of God, this unbearable silence of God, this idea, very nihilistic idea that maybe we're just here and maybe there is no set purpose. And I could continue to talk about Mark Rothko. I think he has a lot to say about the human condition, and abstract expressionism in general has a lot to say about the human condition, especially in the absence of a divine figure. But I'll just leave you with this image of me looking at a Mark Rothko painting. It's my favorite Mark Rothko painting. I saw it at the Guggenheim in New York City, and it's Black on Gray is the name of the painting. And you really get to see the scale and the size of it. And I will see y'all next time.